Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Lauren, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. What happens to your self-identity when you become a parent? That's the question at the heart of today's episode. Today, I am joined by my friend, Michelle Salerno. Michelle is 9 months into motherhood and is navigating something that so many new parents feel but rarely say out loud. The loss, the shift, and the unexpected gifts that come with a brand new identity in parenthood. Michelle also opens up about her 2.5-year IVF journey, what it was like going back to work after having her daughter, and shares how motherhood has changed her. While this conversation will resonate with you, especially if you're a new parent or thinking of becoming one, it's also a great conversation for anybody who might be navigating a life transition or life looking a little bit different than you thought it would. With that, let's get into it. Michelle, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Wow, thank you. This is such an honor.
So today's conversation is going to be about motherhood and identity. You've been a mom for 9 months now. How has that changed your sense of self? And when did you notice that change begin?
It wasn't apparent until she was born. So when you're pregnant, it's not real. Like, it's real, but they're not here. So you can still get away with being in your routine, being yourself for the most part. And then when she was born, I would say over the first month, it was kind of like my whole job right now is to keep this thing alive. And that, I think, is the first instance of an identity shift, because when you're so used to being in corporate America and having a schedule and like you're needed in a non-life dependent way, when you're needed to keep a baby alive, your whole sense of self goes into the preservation of that child. So I think the first month is very shifting in terms of identity, because you go from your consistent schedule to then everything revolves around this baby. And when everything is revolving around the baby, it's like, what is my purpose outside of this one task?
And how did that shift as Sadie got older? Was that something that kind of just stuck around for the first month, or now that you're 9 months in, that's changed again?
I think it's constantly shifting. It was very disorienting being on maternity leave. Towards the end of maternity leave, it was very much like, I need to get back to work, because that is where I'm using my brain power the most. And when you're not talking to adults consistently throughout the day and you're just talking to a baby, it's very much like, what am I doing? So I think towards the end of maternity leave, it started to feel more like, okay, I need to get back to myself. And I equate myself with someone who works. And I kept telling myself, like, the last time I was at work, I was not a mom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a tough transition to go from just focusing on motherhood back into focusing on work and motherhood. And then it was like, well, why is my identity so wrapped up in my job? Like, once I started getting excited to go back to work because like it felt like me, I was like, why is that me? And then you have to shift once you get back into it, because then you have to balance everything. So it's like, I am a full-time mother and a full-time employee, and that's 200% of your time where you have 100%. So it's constantly shifting and changing as you get used to things and as they get older. It was really hard coming back, because I think once people were like, congratulations, like, how's motherhood? How's having a baby? It was very much like, all right, you're at work. I need you to do this, this, like hop back in at 100%.
To coworkers, they don't see that huge shift in your life.
Right. It's just like, oh, Michelle was gone for a little bit and now she's back. So I was happy to be busy and needed again. But then it's also like being 100% focused at work on all of your tasks. And then in the 2 hours a day during the week that you have with your kid, then you have to be 100% focused on that. So it's a lot of adjusting constantly. So that was interesting. I didn't expect balance to be not 50-50.
And do you think that's because there's this myth that, like, oh, women can do it all? They can have a home life and a work life. Being a parent of any type, a mother or a father, there's not a huge dialogue around that it's really hard. Would you agree with that?
So like I don't think it's necessarily a myth that we can do it all as parents. I think the myth is what balance means. I'm still trying to figure it out. I like to say that I am balanced. Like work doesn't feel that I'm a mom, and I'd
Mhm.
like to think that Sadie doesn't feel that I have a job. So like to me that feels like balance. It was hard and I still feel guilt a lot because work demands a lot of me at this point in my career. And so I feel guilty about the time that I'm not able to give Sadie. But I always feel like I wanted Sadie to see me being fulfilled in a job while also being her mom and see, like, wow, this makes my mom happy. Like, I want to do things that make me happy.
Do you feel like there's a sense of friction between your old self and your new self? Do you feel like you're ever fighting this new version of yourself or longing for the older version of yourself?
I think I long for the flexibility of my old self because there's not as much flexibility when you are a parent. But I feel like my old self and current self have just combined. And I think I can attribute that to having like a village around me to help with Sadie because I think if I didn't have so much support from my family and Dan's family, it would be a lot harder to maintain that sense of self at this point. I think that's been really instrumental in maintaining self-balance because I never have to live in one for too long.
I'm sure when you were going through the journey of being pregnant, deciding to you wanted to become pregnant, you've processed some of these emotions, but how has it been different than what you thought it would be?
That's a very interesting question for me specifically because I had to do IVF. So that in itself is an exercise in giving up control. And I'm a very like type A person. I love control. So at the start of our journey to becoming parents, that was a huge shift. And if we're talking about the theme of identity, like that's a big identity crisis of
Mhm.
like, I'm supposed to be able to just get pregnant and have kids. Like all of my friends got pregnant very easily. I had one friend that went through IVF who became a resource for me. I thought that I would get to surprise myself with a positive pregnancy test. I would get to surprise Dan. It would be like a cute thing. My family would be shocked. Like, no way, you were trying? And instead, it became this very prescriptive
Mm,
journey to motherhood over 2.5 years
yeah.
of doctor's appointments, blood work, procedures. And when you go through IVF, it's like the morning of what you thought your pregnancy experience would be because it's not what you grow up thinking
Mhm.
you're going to get. So that was not what I thought it was going to be. So a lot of people would be like, well, it's going to be worth it in the end because like you'll have a kid. And it's like when you don't have that end goal, you can't conceptualize the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
So that wasn't helpful, like because I didn't know what it was like to be a mom. So I was just like, okay, well, I wish I didn't have to do this to become a mom. I wish I could just be a mom. But then I think the universe gave me a break because after that, like, pregnancy was really easy. I had a very easy birth. Sadie's been a very easy kid. And I don't know if I had expectations of what that part was going to be
Mhm.
like because I was so stuck for so many years in just getting to being pregnant
Mhm.
that I'm not sure I let myself think of what it was going to be like when I got there because it seemed so unrealistic.
And I think when you talk about relinquishing control and things not looking like how you thought they would, that's so applicable to like anything in life, not just motherhood. Like we go through watching Disney movies, the perfect
Yeah.
wedding, the perfect kid, and how often do things like not work out in that way? What support or resources got you through that period when you were dealing with disappointment and things not going the way you thought they would?
I am a huge advocate of therapy. Shout out to my therapist. She really held it down during that time. I think it's like healthy to talk about how you feel to be able to process it. And it was also helpful to talk to people who have been through it and also not, because sometimes the people that haven't have a fresh perspective. It's nice to relate completely to somebody, but even like no IVF journey is the same.
Mhm.
But having all of the different perspectives plus my therapist helped. And obviously, like having somebody to lean on, like Dan and I would be able to talk about how unfair it was,
Mhm.
that we had to do this. And I wanted to not get bogged down in the unfairness of it. Like once you process, this sucks, this shouldn't be happening to me. I wish that I could have this easy journey. You kind of have to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and be like, okay, if I want to be a parent, this is what I have to do. I have to just
Mhm.
get through it and hopefully it pans out.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of my friends and family were very supportive of that way of thinking while also allowing me the grace on the days that I was wallowing to
Mhm.
just be like, I know that this is hard and I'm sorry that you're going through this. Because there's nothing I hate more, and maybe this is negative of me, than somebody who silver lines something away. I
Mhm.
think that you need to sit in your discomfort and
Mhm.
sit in your feelings and be able to process them without there needing to be a silver lining. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that something will work out or there's a better option. Like sometimes it's just this is what it is, and that sucks. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry you have to go through that, but you will get through it. And like, that's okay.
Mhm.
I think giving up control in life is hard, but when you experience things that force you to give up control, you get easier at becoming adaptable.
As somebody who has anxiety, like, there's things that, like, my anxiety will attach to, and I'll worry about that and worry about that, and I find that the way things play out in life is usually something that I haven't ever worried about before. Like, it's, like, such a waste of energy, all this worrying when it's like, "Oh, this came out that way," or "This happened, and I didn't even think about that as a possibility." So I think
Yeah.
the relinquishing control is it's very hard to do, but I think an experience like this is like the ultimate example of giving that up. How has that changed you in other aspects of your life?
I think that I've become more chill because I know that I can't affect every outcome. So, like,
Mhm.
having a kid, as much as you think in your head, it's like, this kid's gonna be sleeping by this, and like, they're gonna be on this schedule. It's very much like, this kid is gonna tell you what time it is. And if that baby doesn't want to go down, if that baby wants to eat when they're not supposed to eat, then your whole plan goes out the window. I think in having to go through that, it's made me more accepting of things not going my way. And I have anxiety too. I think the part of the control is the anxiety of not having what ifs. Like if I can control this, I don't have
Mhm.
to anticipate anything because I'm in control. I think I'm the least anxious I've ever been after
Mhm.
motherhood. because you come to terms with whatever will be,
Hmm.
and you have to just roll with the punches.
And I think that's a really good example of how, you talk about your identity shift with motherhood. Like, that's an unforeseen, really positive shift. Have there been any other positive shifts that you've noticed?
I think I have become a softer person, which is positive. I'm notoriously an unemotional person. Not that like I don't have emotions, but I'm very good at remaining level
Hmm.
and unaffected in any given situation. Now, I feel like I am more compassionate and empathetic to a bunch of different situations that normally would have seemed very black and white or cut and dry previously. I think like motherhood's opened up the whole gray scale
Hmm.
of not everything's black and white, and you can have empathy and compassion and still be logical. Like, I'm just a very logical, rational person, and I think that's where the emotion comes out of things. So
Hmm.
being able to do both now, we'll talk
Hmm.
about balance, like being able to balance and regulate your own emotions, I think is a very unforeseen benefit of motherhood.
And I know you talked about what a route to your journey IVF was. Obviously, you're processing emotions there. You talked about going back to work and processing emotions there. How can a coworker or a boss be most supportive of an employee who is coming back from having a baby or going through an IVF type process?
I think that communication is everything. I think, like, if you're a manager that fosters a transparent environment, that makes it a lot easier. I'm very open about it.
Hmm.
Um, Not everybody is open about any of this. So I think if you remain open to somebody going through it, of you can share as much or as little as you want if you need. I think just trying to be a good teammate to people who are trying to figure it out is
Hmm.
the most helpful thing, and just giving grace. This isn't even just IVF or motherhood. Like, if somebody's going through something personal in their life, I, as a manager, take the stress of work away so they can focus on what's personally happening to them. I think that is the most helpful thing.
I think it's also like sometimes you're just not in the mental space. And I think like when you try to work through it when you're not in the mental space, things just get messy and aren't as good as they could be. And so I think it's really important to, like you said, communication and be honest and be like, hey, my head's just not here today and take a day.
And I think, like, people won't be mad about accountability. Do you know what I
Mhm,
mean? Like, if you
mhm.
hold yourself accountable and you're honest, and I'm like, Rachel, I can't do it today. Like, I've just got a lot going on. And I think that people appreciate that more than just like silently struggling and trying to do your tasks and just not being able to do them in the way that you normally would.
Yeah, and it takes a level of courage to disclose that, and like you said, you don't have to go into detail, but just saying, "Hey, mentally, I'm having a really hard day," is not always easy, especially for someone just starting out in their career. That can be
Yeah.
pretty intimidating.
I think that's a strength, though. Like, I try to foster in my team emotional honesty. I care about making sure that you feel emotionally supported and taken care of. A lot of times, I think at work, like, you become desensitized to
Mhm.
people's personal lives because there's so many deliverables and deadlines and pressure. At the end of the day, there's still the human aspect of a coworker. Like, that's a
Mhm.
person with a life outside. I just feel like I'm constantly thinking about things like that.
I like to think about that infographic. I don't know if you've seen it about consistency. I think we think like consistency is giving 100% every single day, but it's a graphic with a bunch of cups. And it's like consistency is actually just showing up every day, whether you can give 130%, whatever it is, it's going to vary every day, but it's that pattern of showing up. And so I think that's helped me realize I can't show up at 100% every day. Like that's not a realistic expectation for me as a person, and it's not a realistic expectation I can place on somebody who I'm working with either.
Do you think that has been freeing in like accepting that consistency doesn't have to be your best? It just has to be showing up?
100%. Show up at 50%, it's better than showing up at 0%. And I think that's
Yes.
true to like build any single habit in your life. You're always trying to just build that showing up muscle because then the executing part of it kind of follows in step with that.
Yeah, I always say anything is better than nothing. You were talking about like a graphic with cups. I've seen so many times like a chart of like a lack of linearness
Mhm.
of any journey isn't linear, and it's like a line that goes like this, 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 but then it's still an upward
Yep.
trajectory whether or not it's consistently upward or
Mhm.
there's ebbs and flows. So I think that's valid.
Yeah, and I think we grow up again with the fallacy of like, well, I just do these little steps up and up and up and up and up. There's one that I love when I'm thinking about any kind of project I'm working on. You have this like, okay, I think I could do this. I'm excited. And then they have the pit of despair. And we will always hit the pit of despair in any journey. And it's like, oh, and then you like go back up and it's like, maybe I can. Okay, I think I can. Oh my gosh, I did. So I think like
Yeah.
going into any project or any journey, whether it's IVF or a project at work, whatever, I always go in now expecting that pit of despair to come. That when it does come, I'm like, okay, this is just a really normal part of the process. And like, I'm going to get out of that pit. And sometimes you need family and friends to help you out of it. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know how long it'll last. But I feel like it's a very normal part of the journey and should be normalized when we talk about accomplishing anything great.
Well, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not trying to silver line things away. The acceptance that a a hard time is not permanent. And this is a concept that they talk about a lot in parenthood. Like everything is a phase. And
Mhm,
that's true in life, at work. Like everything is a phase. You just have to get through the phase
mhm.
and it'll be okay. And then there's a new phase that starts, and then the phases all culminate into just you growing and learning. But as you deal with each phase and you feel like you're not going to get out, all of a sudden you turn around and you're in the next phase and you're like, wow, I did it. I'm out. Like, here we go with something new.
You have the terrible twos to look forward to soon.
Oh my God. Hopefully, okay, not soon. Don't make me cry. I get so emotional about the fact that Sadie's almost a year old, but she is going to be an absolute menace as a toddler. I already know her attitude is out of control and she can't even talk. As soon as she has the language to say things, I'm in for it.
Well, Michelle, it's been amazing having you as a guest. Your advice is so pertinent to both new parents and people going through any significant journey in their life. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
This has been another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe on the platform that you're listening or share it with a friend who might benefit from this conversation. I'm so glad you were able to join me for today's episode, and I'll talk to you soon.